They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from someone you love. But what happens when it comes from two people you never thought would turn their backs on you? That evening, as I set the table for dinner, roasted chicken in the oven, my son humming a silly song, I received a text message that shattered 14 years of marriage and an entire lifetime of trust. My husband was leaving me for my sister, and she was pregnant. But instead of breaking down, I smiled. Because what he didn't know was that I had already begun writing the ending to this story, and it would not go the way he expected. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a story about a woman who refused to crumble, about quiet strength, about protecting your peace, and rising when the world expects you to fall. You'll hear about heartbreak, but also about healing, about a plan set in motion months before the betrayal even came to light, about a boutique that bloomed from ashes, and a woman who rebuilt her life not with revenge, but with resilience. Stay with me, because this isn't just my story, it might just be yours too. Started like any other Tuesday. The house smelled like rosemary and thyme, the dinner table was halfway set, and my 12-year-old son Liam was upstairs doing homework, or at least pretending to. I was scrolling through my phone when the text came in. She needs our support. I'm moving in with her. Already emptied our joint account. Haha. First I thought it was a joke. Some cruel, unfunny joke. But then came the second message. She's pregnant, Jessica. We have to be there for her. I know this is a lot, but let's be adults about it. Adults. I remember blinking, breathing, placing my phone slowly on the table like it was made of glass. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. The only sign of the explosion that just took place inside my chest was the silence. Liam called down from the stairs. Mom, what's for dinner? And I said, chicken, sweetheart. Your favorite. Just like that. Because I refused to let his betrayal define who I was. Not as a woman. Not as a mother. Not as Jessica. It's strange how your whole life can shift in the time it takes to read a single text message. I was in the kitchen that evening, setting out plates for dinner. The smell of garlic and thyme filled the house, the oven hummed quietly, and my 12-year-old son Liam was upstairs, probably playing more than doing homework. Everything felt normal, familiar. Then my phone buzzed. At first I didn't rush to check it. Just another recipe pin from my friend, I thought. But when I looked, the screen said, she needs our support. I'm moving in with her. Already emptied our joint account. Haha. First I read it twice. I even smiled a little. Not because it was funny, but because my brain couldn't quite process the absurdity. She was my younger sister, Emily. 9 years younger. The one I helped raise when our mom passed. The one I took to school, helped with homework, braided her hair for prom. That Emily. And the I in the message. My husband, James. The man I'd built a life with for over 14 years. The man who kissed our son goodnight just the evening before. A second text followed, like a knife twisting deeper. She's pregnant, Jessica. We have to be there for her. I know this is a lot, but let's be adults about it. Pregnant. Let's be adults about it. My fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't screaming. Just stood there. I remember turning off the stove, calmly placing the salad bowl in the center of the table. Liam called out, Mom, what's for dinner? And I replied without missing a beat, roast chicken, sweetie. Almost ready. It wasn't denial. It was discipline. It was the choice to put my son first, even while my world cracked in half. You see, betrayal doesn't always look like chaos. Sometimes it's the quietest moment of your life. A moment where you realize everything you believed in just changed forever. And yet somehow you're still standing. That night I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sent a single message back. Congratulations. No punctuation. No emotion. Just a word. Because in that moment, James thought he had all the power. But what he didn't know was that I had already started preparing for this day. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. When someone tries to provoke you, don't give them the reaction they expect. Give them clarity instead. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. The late nights, the unexplained absences, the sudden generosity toward my sister. But I chose not to look. Until I couldn't look away anymore. Let's talk about the long trail of red flags I ignored. And what you should never overlook. Looking back, the truth was never hiding. It had been standing right in front of me. I just didn't want to see it. That's the thing about betrayal. It's not always sudden. Sometimes it tiptoes in through the cracks you pretend aren't there. And that's exactly what I did. I pretended. The signs were everywhere. James started working late. Blah. At first, it was believable. He had always been hardworking. Extra meetings, he said. Last-minute reports. I remember even feeling grateful that he was so dedicated. But then came the little things. He started bringing home flowers. For Emily. Oh, she mentioned she was feeling down, he said, brushing it off. Or he'd drop off takeout at her apartment saying, just being a good brother-in-law. She's family, Jess. And Emily. She'd laugh and say, I swear I don't know what I'd do without James. Not every sister gets this lucky. I should have known. But I didn't. 'Cause I trusted him. And I loved her. And those two emotions, love and trust, they blind you more than any lie ever could. I remember one night in particular. James had just come home past 11 p.m. I asked him where he'd been. He smiled, kissed my cheek and said, helping Emily move some furniture. Her back's been acting up. I believed him. Even when I found a receipt in his jacket pocket for a hotel room that same night. My heart knew the truth. But my mind made excuses. Maybe it was for work. Maybe he forgot to mention it. Maybe I'm just overthinking. The saddest part isn't that the signs were there. It's that I had trained myself not to see them. Sometimes love makes us ignore what's right in front of us. But your intuition, it's wiser than you think. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't gaslight yourself just to keep the peace. But I wasn't a fool. Not completely. That hotel receipt changed something in me. I didn't confront him. I prepared. Because if James thought he was playing chess, he was about to find out. I'd already started building my own board. Let's talk about how I began planning my quiet escape. And the first steps of reclaiming my power. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a single dish or demand answers. Instead, I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and began to build my exit. You see, the moment I found that hotel receipt, something inside me shifted. I stopped asking, why would he do this to me? And started asking, what can I do for myself? James may have been slipping away quietly, but I was going to leave loudly, just not with noise. With clarity. The first thing I did was start a new bank account. Private. In my name only. I transferred small amounts at first, nothing noticeable. Enough to blend in with groceries, school fees, birthday gifts. Then I requested printed credit card statements, just to check the budget, I told him. But what I really wanted was the truth. And it was all there. Boutique flower shops, hotel bars, jewelry stores I'd never seen. Each charge was like a breadcrumb on a trail I didn't want to follow, but had to. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I quietly retained a lawyer. A kind woman named Caroline, who treated me like a person, not a case. I just want to be prepared, I told her. She nodded. Smart women don't wait for the storm. They build shelter while the skies are still clear. One afternoon, while James was working late again, no doubt supporting Emily, I sat on our living room couch, reviewing property documents. The house was in my name. It had been a gift from my parents. James had suggested we add his name, just to make things easier. But I delayed, not even realizing at the time that I was protecting my future. Now, I was grateful for that hesitation. Because when everything fell apart, this home, the walls I had built with love, wouldn't be his to take. Every night after Liam went to bed, I'd sit in silence. Not crying, not breaking, planning. And that was my power. You don't always need to explode to take back control. Sometimes the quietest moves are the strongest ones. Preparation isn't paranoia. It's self-respect in action. So when that text finally came, when James said he was moving in with Emily and that she was pregnant, he thought he had caught me off guard. But the truth, I had already taken the first steps. Now it was time to move forward. You'd think that when your husband tells you he's leaving for your younger sister, who's now pregnant with his child, you'd scream, cry, throw a chair through a window maybe. But I didn't do any of that. I just said nothing. I didn't call him. I didn't text back with angry words. I didn't even tell Emily she had destroyed the only real family she had left. I simply sent back one word: congratulations. And that was it. Because that was the moment I realized I didn't want to fight for someone who had already chosen to walk away. I didn't want to waste one more breath, one more tear, one more anything on a man who saw me as disposable. It was a quiet rebellion, a silent act of defiance. And let me tell you something. Silence can be louder than any scream. I remember pouring a glass of wine that night, one James had been saving for a special occasion. I sat in my living room, the same room where we had once cuddled on movie nights, planned holidays, argued about paint colors. But that night it felt different, felt like mine. When the third message came in: please don't make this ugly, Jessica. Let's be adults. She's scared. I just laughed. He was worried about ugly. After cheating with my sister behind my back. That was the moment I forwarded the texts to Caroline, my lawyer. No words, no commentary, just the evidence. And then I turned off my phone. Because for the first time in our marriage, he was the one who needed something from me. And I had nothing left to give. Not every battle is worth fighting. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the choice to walk away with your dignity intact. But that was just the calm before the storm. Because while James thought he had emptied our joint account and moved on with a clean slate, he didn't realize the real money was somewhere he couldn't touch. And the house he thought he could walk back into, well, that door was about to close, literally. The morning after I sent that final congratulations, I woke up early, not because I couldn't sleep, but because I could. For the first time in weeks, my mind wasn't spinning. My plan was in motion, and it was time to take back what was mine. After packing Liam's lunch and walking him to the bus stop, I made my first call. Caroline, I said into the phone, my voice steady. It's time. She knew exactly what I meant. We had been preparing for this moment for months. Step 1. Freeze all shared accounts. James thought he had cleaned out our joint account. What he didn't know was that the real savings, the emergency fund I'd been quietly building, was safe in a separate account. The one with my name on it only. He walked away with pennies, thinking they were gold. Step 2. Change the locks. The house had always been in my name, but I never flaunted that. It was our home until it wasn't. By mid-morning, a locksmith arrived. I stood at the door, coffee in hand, watching as the key James carried in his pocket became nothing more than metal and memory. Just after noon, I filed for divorce, under grounds of adultery. I didn't need drama. I needed documentation. And now I had it. That afternoon, as I sat on the porch reviewing paperwork, Emily called. Her voice was small, unsure. Jessica, please don't hate me. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't have words, but because I didn't feel hate. Felt done. I don't hate you, I said, and I meant it. You just don't know what you've gotten yourself into. She sniffled. James said you told him to take care of me. Does that mean you forgive us? Forgive. James hadn't rescued her. He had recruited her. He had whispered promises into her ears while still sleeping in my bed. And now, he was her problem. I'm so glad you called, I said gently. But I'm afraid James won't be moving back here. There was a long pause on the other end. What do you mean? I looked over at the freshly installed new locks. I mean, this house isn't his anymore. It never really was. You don't have to shout to be strong. Sometimes strength looks like quiet confidence. And a locked door that says, "Not anymore." Before we continue, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that shook your world? How did you respond? Did you fall apart or rise stronger? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Whether it's pain, strength, or healing, you never know who might need to read your story today. This space is for all of us. At first, I didn't hear much from James. Silence after betrayal can be a strange thing. But I knew it wouldn't last. A man like James wasn't used to consequences. He was used to slipping out of one life and into another, expecting the world to adjust around him. But this time, the world didn't. The first crack appeared 2 days later. A message buzzed on my phone. "You changed the locks." Seriously? Waited. Then another. "You can't just shut me out. I need to come back and get my stuff." Smiled. Because even now he thought he still had access, still had control. My reply was short. "Oh, I didn't change the locks. The owner of the house did." And just like that, the illusion began to crumble. Later that day, Emily called again. This time her voice was thinner, like she was speaking through a crack in the wall. "James said the apartment's too small," she whispered. "He thought maybe you'd let him stay. Just for a while." That was the moment I realized. James never planned to build a new life. He planned to borrow mine. He wanted to walk out the front door with one woman and walk back in with another, like nothing had changed. He hadn't told Emily the house was mine. He hadn't told her the money was gone. He was gambling on charm and manipulation, as if those were currencies that never run out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I simply said, "I'm afraid James doesn't live here anymore." I could hear the pause, the shuffle as she turned to him. "James, what does she mean?" I pictured it. His face falling, pride twisting, realizing the trap had already snapped shut. Later that evening, James finally called. I didn't answer. Then came another message. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I typed slowly, letting the words sink like stones. "No, James. I'm making it exactly as hard as it needs to be." Because it was time he learned that choices come with consequences. People who build fantasy worlds on lies often expect others to hold the foundation. But when you stop holding, the whole thing falls. Let it fall. That's not your burden to carry. The phone rang again the next day. It was Emily. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Her voice was shaky. "Jessica, can we talk?" I paused, then replied softly, "I'm listening." She hesitated. I just wanted to say you were right." I didn't say anything at first. 'Cause what could I say? I wasn't interested in being right. I had lost a husband and a sister. This wasn't a competition. It was a wound. She went on, voice trembling. "James left. He said he needed space. That I should have been more careful about getting pregnant." She sniffled. "I thought he loved me." My heart didn't break for her. Not in the way it used to. But I felt something. A sadness maybe for the girl she had been. Naive. Hopeful. Believing a man who whispers to you in the dark while lying to someone else in the daylight. I leaned back in my chair, eyes closed. "Emily," I said gently. "He's treating you exactly the way he treated me. You just didn't see it until now." There was silence on the other end. Then a quiet. "I think I made a mistake." Could have said, "Yes, you did." I could have listed every moment she betrayed me. But I didn't. Because it wouldn't change anything. Some conversations don't bring closure. They don't bring forgiveness. They simply remind you how far you've come. "You need to figure out what's best for you and the baby," I told her, softly but firmly. She let out a shaky breath. "We don't even have a place to stay. James said he had everything under control." I almost pitied her. Almost. But the truth was, Emily made her choice. She had picked her fantasy. Now she had to live with its reality. "I have to go, Emily," I said, calm and clear. Take care of yourself. And then hung up. You don't owe closure to the people who broke you. Not every apology deserves a response. Sometimes the best answer is moving on in peace. Of all the things I had to face in those first few days, the hardest part wasn't James. It wasn't Emily. It was Liam, my son, 12 years old. Bright, funny, a little shy. He had James' smile but my eyes. And he didn't know a thing. Not yet. That night, as I tucked him into bed, he looked up and asked, "Is Dad coming home soon?" My breath caught for a second. Just a second. I sat beside him, smoothing the hair from his forehead. His eyes searched mine, not for lies but for truth he could handle. I didn't say, "Your dad betrayed us." I didn't say, "He's living with your aunt now and she's having his baby." Instead I said, "Daddy is staying with Aunt Emily for a while. He made some grown-up choices, and now he has to live with them." Liam blinked, thinking, did he do something bad? Pause. How much do you tell a child without stealing their innocence? I chose honesty wrapped in softness. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. And when they do, the best thing we can do is learn from them and keep moving forward. He nodded slowly. Then, almost like it didn't surprise him, he said, "Okay. Just okay." That one word held more wisdom than I expected. It didn't mean he wasn't hurt, but it meant he trusted me to carry him through it. In that moment I realized, Liam wasn't the one who needed protection. I was the one who needed to stay strong for him. He turned over and pulled the blanket to his chin. I kissed his forehead and whispered, "Good night, baby." Then I stepped out of the room, closed the door, and allowed myself one deep, shaking breath. Because even the strongest women need a moment. Sometimes we think we have to shield our children from pain. But honesty, with compassion, builds resilience. Teaches them how to face life with courage, just like you're learning to. While James was scrambling, calling banks, pleading with lawyers, trying to figure out where it had all gone wrong, I was quietly thriving. Funny how healing doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it shows up as a quiet morning. Full breath. An unshaken cup of coffee. A smile that doesn't feel borrowed. 3 weeks after I filed for divorce, I unlocked the doors to my boutique. My little shop, the one James once dismissed as just a hobby. He used to tease me about it. "Cute, Jess. But you should focus on something real." Well, this cute little shop had just turned its first real profit quarter. We were hiring, expanding, and I was the one signing paychecks. I remember standing in front of the mirror that morning, wearing a soft blue blouse, a little lipstick. Not for anyone else but for me. And for the first time in a long time, saw her, Jessica, the woman I used to be, and the woman I had become. And that was the moment I realized, I wasn't rebuilding my life from scratch. I was building it from experience. I wasn't starting over. I was starting smarter. No longer bending to make others comfortable. No longer shrinking myself to fit inside someone else's shadow. No longer apologizing for taking up space. That afternoon, Caroline, my lawyer, called. "Good news," she said with a smile in her voice. The judge finalized the divorce. James walked away with nothing. And he's been ordered to pay court costs. I let out a small laugh. Not from revenge, but from relief. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about freedom. Sometimes the greatest success isn't proving anyone wrong. It's finally living like you were never broken. You don't have to rise loudly. Just rise fully. That's enough. It was late in the afternoon. The shop was quiet. Sunlight stretched lazily across the hardwood floor of my boutique, catching the soft shimmer of a new dress display by the window. I was just about to lock up for the evening when my assistant walked in. Her expression somewhere between curious and amused. "You're not going to believe who's outside," she said softly. I looked up. "Who?" She tilted her head toward the street. "James. He's just standing there. Across the road. Not moving." I walked to the window, slowly, calmly, and looked out. There he was. Same face but somehow smaller. His hair was unkempt. His shirt wrinkled. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. A man who had gambled everything and lost. He didn't come to the door. He didn't wave. He just watched. And I watched him back. Not with anger, not with regret, but with something that surprised even me. I didn't feel the need to confront him, or ask why, or offer anything at all, because standing there behind my own glass window, surrounded by the life I had built with my own two hands, I finally saw it clearly. He wasn't part of my story anymore. He had chosen chaos, and I had chosen clarity. He had walked away from a home, a marriage, and a future. And now, he was simply watching what he could never reclaim. I didn't step outside. I didn't wave. I didn't even open the door. I just turned away. Back to my counter. Back to the final receipt of the day. Back to me. Because there's something incredibly powerful in knowing you've made it to the other side. And you didn't just survive. You thrive. Sometimes closure doesn't come in words. Sometimes it's just a moment when you realize you don't need to be seen, heard, or validated, because you've already reclaimed yourself. And that is more than enough. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of this story. If there's one lesson to take away, it's this. Betrayal may break your heart, but it doesn't have to break your spirit. You are stronger than you think, and sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing you can do. I'd love to know, how did this story make you feel? Did it remind you of anything in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words might give someone else the courage to heal. And if this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There are so many more powerful stories waiting for you. Until next time, take care of your heart and never settle for less than you deserve.